Well, hello, humble seafarer, and welcome back to Ready Steady Play. In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up your game for Sand and Sea, the combo of Century Eastern Wonders and its predecessor. Come here! Century Spice Road. If you want to pair these together, you've come to the right place, but it's actually very similar to the setup for Century Eastern Wonders. If you haven't seen it, you should check out the component rundown for my video of Eastern Wonders, because we're going to use basically all of the components from Eastern Wonders and very few of the components from Spice Road. In fact, the only thing we need out of Spice Roads is a deck of cards and a couple of starting cards. So you'll go into your Spice Road, you'll ignore everything in there except for these starting player cards. These are purple bordered, and they have a purple century card back like this. And there are two types, and you'll need one set of two cards for each of your players that you're playing with. You'll also need this deck of century cards here. Everything else, you can leave in the box. We don't need it. However, you might want to get out your spice bowls if you've got 4 players, because it's quite helpful to have those out, and they're totally interchangeable. Although the spices are different. In this we've got turmeric and tea and chili, and in this we've got saffron and cardamom and whatever, but the cubes are the same color and they're totally interchangeable. Doesn't matter. So once you've got your century cards out, we can set those to one side for now, and we'll set up our map for Sand to Sea. If you remember, when we were setting up Eastern Wonders, we shuffled these decks and took out one tile. What we're going to do is we're going to take out 2 tiles from each deck in Sand to Sea. So we're taking out more trading posts. And what we're going to do instead is shuffle in these water tiles, which is going to mean there's fewer trading points on the board, and that's going to be compensated for by this century deck here. And I'll explain that in just a minute. But once you've taken out those tiles, grab these and shuffle them just like you did before. Now, I talked about making a custom map and also the map setup in my setup and rules video for Eastern Wonders. So if you haven't checked that out, please do. But the map setup there, I show you the basic map setup. I'm going to use the basic one here as well, so that you know how to get started for your first game. So there's our board for From Sand to Sea. And these water tiles here are the big difference you'll notice between this and the board for Eastern Wonders. And these are completely randomly placed from the random tile shuffle I did at the start. What we're also going to do is take this big deck of century cards here and give that a shuffle. And then we're going to lay out 4 cards from the top of the deck, like this. And we're going to place our deck on the right of this set of cards here, like that. Now that we've done that, we can pretty much proceed with the game setup from Eastern Wonders. As you'll recall, the next thing we do is our victory point tiles. Now be sure to keep your closed port tiles separate there, and just put out one of these on each of the 4 ports as we did with Eastern Wonders. Then we'll just, again, as the same process, take 5 of these top tiles, take the closed port tile, shuffle it in, and put it back on top. Now, we are going to set out our upgrades, but we're not going to include 2 of the piles. We're going to lose the upgrade that improves your harvest action, because in this game there is no harvest action. More on that in a minute. We're also not going to include the upgrade that allows you to upgrade spices when you build outposts. I don't know why that's taken out. It's just gone. So forget about it. So next to our board here, we'll put everyone's favorite hold upgrade. We've kept the victory point upgrades, and of course the free move upgrade as well. That's still going to come in really handy in this version of the game. However, this one and this one, gone forever. Don't want to see you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Don't forget your spice trays. Now these have retained the same order of rarity, so you can just put them out like you did in the other game. And then once all this is set up, and this is important because this starting information should be known to players, once all that's set up, it's time for everyone to get their player boards again and all their little houses and stuff. So, first off, you need to decide who's going to be your starting player to make sure they get the starting player mat. Now, a big difference here when we give our starting player their starting player mat, and you'll remember that this is the starting player mat because of this symbol up here, which is different to the lion symbol that you see on all the other player mats, is that we won't be putting it on this side here, which is used for Eastern Wonders. We'll be flipping it over to its sand and sea side. And what you'll notice about the sand and sea side, other than that it's mostly identical, is that it's got one fewer columns here in this grid. So instead of having 5 columns, you've only got 4 columns. And that it now contains the sentry card as well as the upgrade symbol at the top here. So you'll note this first column has a sentry card symbol there, and the remaining columns have an upgrade or sentry card symbol at the top. And what this means is that when you complete the columns by placing all the outposts, just like in Eastern Wonders, you can take a reward from the top. When you complete the first column, you can have a free sentry card, and when you complete the second, third, and fourth column, you can have either a sentry card or an upgrade. You'll notice that there's fewer outposts overall on the sand and sea side of these boards, but that's okay because there's also fewer trading posts here. However, you can build any number of trade posts. It's just after a time you're going to stop scoring points for it. So I've set up some boards here for our blue and for our pink player. We're going to give them each a starting hand of cards, and I'll talk a bit more about the cards in a minute. But just like in Eastern Wonders, what we're going to do is take 4 sets of spices here and set them out for our players to pick from. And it's the same 4 sets, which is 4 ginger, 2 ginger, and a chili, a tea, and a ginger, and 2 chilies. And once again, the player in last position will choose first, in this case pink. They'll pick 1 set of spices, and then choose a position to put their boat down on the board. Blue player will then pick a set, or the next player in reverse turn order, and then put their ship down here on the board, and the remaining spices will be returned to their spice bowls if there are any. And then once again, we're ready to begin play. There are a few noteworthy differences. The harvest action is completely gone. Your available actions in From Sand to Sea are movement, market action, port action, acquire a card, play a card, rest. Movement works very differently in this, but let's first look at acquire a card. If you want to acquire a card, you can take one of the 4 cards available here in the Sentry Card Marketplace. You just pick a card that you want and you take it. However, starting from the leftmost card, they increase in cost. So if our pink player here decides she wants this card here, she would have to put a cube down on this card. If she decides she wants this one here, she'll have to put 2 cubes down. Once the card is purchased, it's added to her hand. Then any cards on the right shift down and are replaced from the deck on the right. If a player takes one of these cards, they will gain all of the cubes on it. So if they take this card, they'll first have to put down a cube there, but then they'll gain this cube and the card. There's no maximum hand size in From Sand to Sea, which means that you can't just keep grabbing cards and putting them into your hand. So if you want to build an engine using the sentry cards, you can. If you'd prefer to just sail around the board and using the cards just for movement, you can do that too. It's really up to you. Next, let's look at play a card, because this is quite important and it'll teach you about the 3 different kinds of sentry cards in the sentry deck. The sentry deck contains 3 different kinds of cards, 2 of which are included in your starting hand. If the card looks like this, and just has a number of cubes in a banner like that, when you play the card, you simply get the cubes within the banner. You can, of course, get better versions of this card from the marketplace if you manage to find them. You've also got this card, which is the upgrade card. Upgrade cards allow you to increase the quality of 1 cube in your hold. You can take a cube from your hold and upgrade it a number of steps equal to the number of spaces on the card. So in this case, we could go up 2 steps, which means we could go from yellow to green or from red to brown. We can always stop off at any space in the middle, so we could go from yellow to red, or from red to green. The upgrade card only ever allows you to upgrade one cube in your hold. No matter how many cubes are depicted here, this is the number of steps by which you can upgrade it, not the number of cubes that may be upgraded. You can only ever upgrade one cube. Finally, we've got these trade cards. And the trade cards are exactly the same as the trade actions on the marketplace tiles. So you'll even notice some similarities in the different trades that you can do. Just like when performing a trade on one of these tiles, you can do the trade as many times as you can afford. So if you have 6 red cubes, you can gain 4 brown cubes. Or you can just do 3 cubes for 2 cubes. It's up to you. So when you take the play a card action, you simply take a card from your hand and play it face up on the left of your player board like this. You'll then complete the actions on the card. In this case, take 2 cubes and add them to your hold. The cubes matching the symbols here. So of course, if I were to play this one, I would gain a T and a ginger instead of 2 ginger. When you play a card, that is all you do. You cannot move and then play a card. You can only play a card. Just like with acquire, you can only acquire a card. But just like in Eastern Wonders, if you take a move action, you can then take a free market action or port action. Unlike in Eastern Wonders, there's no free move, so you cannot move one space for free, which you can do in Eastern Wonders. Instead, what you must do to move is put cards into your discard pile. And the cards can come from your hand or from the face-up side of your player board. So if I wanted to move one space, if I was the blue player, I could turn this card over here, which would give me 1 movement. If I wanted to move another space, I have no cards left here, so I would have to put this one down from my hand, face down, in order to move another space. Now I've got no cards left in hand, so I cannot do any more movement. Now that I've completed my movement though, I can do a free market action or port action. These actions are the same as in Eastern Wonders, so if you'd like to know about them in more detail, I suggest looking at my Eastern Wonders video. But to summarize very quickly, when you take a market action, you can take an outpost from your board in a row matching the market tile that you're on and just place it down there. When you place a outpost on a tile, you pay 1 resource cube from your player board to the bank for each outpost on the tile already, which means if you're the first player, you can play it for free. In a 2-player game, you must always pay 2 cubes. So in this case, our pink player would pay 2 to the bank to play a outpost down here. But if it were a 3-player game, she would only have to pay 1, and same in a 4-player game. So in a 3-player game, if our 3rd player shows up here, then they would have to pay 2 cubes. The second part of the market action is to complete the trade on the tile. In this case, our blue player here can trade 2 ginger for 1 tea. And again, they can do this as many times as they can afford. So they could either do 2 for 1, 4 for 2, and so on if they have the cubes for it. The port action is when you move on to one of these port tiles here, and you purchase the victory point tile on the port. When you purchase one of these tiles, you must pay exactly the cost back to the bank. In this case, 4 chili and 2 cloves. You must pay exactly that cost, and then you can take the tile. A new tile is taken off of the victory point deck here and placed onto the port. At some point, this closed port tile here is going to come out, and when this tile comes out, it will be resting on one of the ports like this. If anyone ever purchases a tile from a port, then the closed port tile will move to the most recently purchased place, and the place that the closed port tile was on will be replaced instead. Thus, this will move around the board to wherever the last purchased victory tile was located. Remember that when you gain a victory point tile, it just goes face down next to your player board. As I'm sure you noticed during setup, we have different icons on the top of the columns here on our player board. In Eastern Wonders, you can always get an upgrade when you clear one of your columns. However, if you were to play an outpost from each of these different rows, which means 1 on each of the trading tiles matching the symbols here, then you'll complete a column. Now, the first column completed in Sand C gets you a free Century card. What this means is that you can take one card from any of the 4 available without having to put down cubes onto the other cards. But you'll take that, and then the marketplace will be refreshed as per normal, and the card will be added to your hand. After the first column is complete, the second column, you'll notice, has this upgrade symbol here. And what that means is you can take another free Century card if you like, or you can have an upgrade instead. And that's going to be either your hold upgrade here, your free movement upgrade here, which operates just the same as in Eastern Wonders, or your victory points here. To clarify, the free movement allows you to move between tiles without having to turn over cards or discard cards from your hand. When you gain an upgrade token, put it next to your player board to remember that you've got it. The final action you might take is a rest action. When you take a rest action, just take up all the cards on either side of your player board and collect them back to your hand. The endgame scoring for Sand C works exactly the same as the endgame scoring for Eastern Wonders. That is to say that you'll gain points equal to all of the victory point tiles that you've collected. You'll gain points equal to the upgrade that you've bought. In this case, it's just the victory point upgrades here that are available. You'll gain points for any of the spaces you've revealed on your player board. And you'll gain points for any of the spices left in your hold that aren't yellow. So what From Sand to Sea does is it gives you a lot more scope to try out different strategies in the game. But those are your main differences, really. What we're doing is we're taking the Century deck from Spice Road and incorporating it into Eastern Wonders. So if you have any more questions about the game, be sure to check out my Eastern Wonders run-through video. And remember, the primary differences are that you've got the acquire card action now, you've got the play a card action, the rest action, which allows you to pick up all of your cards on the table, put them back into your hand, which cannot be comboed with movement. And finally, there's no harvest action, which is common in Eastern Wonders. Other than that, you should be fairly familiar now, but don't worry, because I'm going to be coming back with Michael and Ollie, and we're going to play Eastern Wonders, and we're going to play From Sand to Sea, and afterwards, we're going to give you our thoughts on what we thought for both. So I hope that you'll subscribe to the channel so you don't miss it, and make sure you come back for those videos, and thank you very much for watching.